This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come to America.
Good morning, New York. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here Sunday morning. We have Alex Diakou, talks about charter schools in New York City. Steve Cates, what's going on in Mars and the moon. Ray Tierney, Suffolk County DA, Staten Island, Borough President Vito Fossella, Governor David Paterson, Jesse Arms from the Manhattan Institute, John Terrett on the economy, Senator George Borrello. Today is Greek Easter. We have Father Evangelos to talk about the difference between Greek Easter, Catholic Easter, and Passover. And let's start off with Michael Stoller and the Real Estate Report.
Good morning, this is Mike Stoller for the Stoller Real Estate Report. Residential housing in New York, a nightmare. There's no apartments. There's no places for people to live. There's a limited affordability. So I have today my friend Ofer Yordeni, who is the founder and CEO of Stonehenge NYC, Stonehenge Investments.
Thank you very much, Michael, for having me.
So tell me what's really happening,
So I came to this country 40 years ago, and I started to work in real estate for the last 30 years ago. And from the day I started, everybody was talking about crisis in the multifamily. No homes, no places to live. In fact, I even remember an episode in Seinfeld that they were talking about how valuable are rent stabilized. So Michael, my dear friend, nothing changed. Crisis 30 years ago, and today, in 2026, we are in a crisis in the multifamily again and again. And if you will listen to my prediction,
that's why you're here.
Nothing will change. Nothing will change. Crisis will continue a year after a year, and prices will continue to increase a year after a year, and New York City will be the best market in the United States. We might have a crisis here and there, but overall it's the most stable market that I've seen in the world. And we are today in a market where I've seen the highest rents that I've seen in the last 30 years. The demand, I've never seen demand like today. And the occupancy is 97, 98, and you can be 100% if you want overnight, just reduce $100. And the biggest surprise is collection. Collection is 99%. So we are really in a wonderful market for owners that own multifamily in New York City. Now, I'm not talking about the boroughs. I'm not talking about necessarily certain segments of the market. I'm talking about really the better location here in the city.
But we need housing for the people who are working here, who are moving here.
So that's another misconception that people are talking about. We need houses for working. Can you define to me what do you mean by working? Everybody is speaking about affordability, and they want to build apartment buildings that are at least an hour from the working place, like where we are on 800 3rd. The problem that I see that is being neglected and nobody is speaking about is what do you do about the problem that we have for investment banker and his wife that are making $500,000 a year, or $300,000 or $400,000, or even close to $800,000 a year. Where are they going to live? I always believe that you'll find solution for the people who are making $30,000 or $50,000 or $80,000. There are many programs in the city that they will find housing, but for the guys that are moving from the West Coast, that are technology, for the lawyers that are working on deals, to the investment bankers, to the consultant from McKinsey, to the people that are creating
What
the
about
jobs.
the person who's working in a retail store or a shopping center or construction?
Okay, so yes, for all of them, you need to find apartment in the city, but the way the regulations are working right now and the way the administration and the way the system is, you will not be able to create housing. The only one that really delivered on his promise to create housing was our Mayor Bloomberg. He developed over 250,000 brand new houses. If it was in the Hudson Yards or Williamsburg or Long Island City. But every other mayor or politician that is aiming to create 250 or 500,000, these are really slogans without the ability to deliver the housing. If you look what's going in the office building, if you drive on Park Avenue, you will see that office buildings are being demolished and new ones are being built. Take, for example, what SL Green created with One Vanderbilt, the rents that they are getting. They took the risk, they demolished old office building, and they built a brand new office building. You can't do it in the Upper West Side or the Upper East Side or other parts of the city. The zoning restriction and even though with the city of yes, it is almost impossible to demolish those old buildings and to build brand new buildings that can be a place for people to live. So I think that with the current way the system is working, rents will continue to increase and the demand will continue to be here. And I think that we are going to continue to talk about crisis in the multifamily.
Okay. I'd like to thank Ophir Ardeni for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
The Cats Roundtable.
Well, it's Greek Easter this week, and with us today is another Greek. We have with us Alec Diakou, and he has formed one of the most, I guess, famous single school charter schools in the city of New York. He's the executive director, and it's called the Yalu Charter School. Well, Alex, tell us a little bit about the school.
So we were formed 11 years ago. We have 410 kindergarten through sixth grade students this year. We began with kindergarten and first grade, and each of the kids have matriculated from grade to grade. We recently were granted the ability to go to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade by the state education department, and we began with 6th grade this year. Next year we'll have 7th and then 8th grade. We have a curriculum that emphasizes character development as well as academic achievement. And we do this through the disciplined activities of the arts. We have a partnership with the Bronx Arts Ensemble for visual and violin, fencing with Olympic fencers who act as instructors, and chess taught by grandmasters.
And I understand some of your kids who used to be homeless achieved state championship.
That is correct, John. 22% of our kids are homeless, 96% are economically disadvantaged. And the chess championships we won last year, the New York State Chess Championships in Saratoga, New York, and we took second place in the Nationals last year. This year, we took first place in the 2026 New York State Scholastic Chess Championships in Saratoga. And we are preparing now to go to the Nationals in Baltimore, May 1st through 3rd.
The fact is, I had a great experience with a school 50 years ago, or just about. We're having our class reunion. I went to Brooklyn Tech, and I was a kid from 135th Street in Harlem. And Brooklyn Tech High School made a big difference in my life. So I guess if you're from homeless or you're from inner city, we need more schools that make differences in these kids' lives.
Well, we were intentional about recruiting students from at-risk populations. As I said, 96% of our students are economically disadvantaged, and 40% are English language learners, 54% speak a language other than English at home, and 17% of our students have disabilities. Our goal is to teach our children how to face challenges with confidence. You get that through chess, you get that through fencing. What I tell the children all the time is you have to learn to lose before you can learn to win. And they have instilled that in their mental attitude, and then it carries over into their academic outcomes. How do you deal with a difficult situation or a difficult problem, whether it's in school or out of school?
I used to walk around with a name like Katsimatidis. I was scared that people weren't going to like me because my name was too long.
I understand. I grew up the same way in Chicago.
So your name is Diakou. Is that short?
Yes. My father went back to the original Greek before the Revolution. After the Revolution, as you know, all of the suffixes were added to names, so it was Diakomopoulou or Diakomopoulos. And when he came to America, he was one of the first Greeks to ever work on Wall Street, and he decided to go back to the original name, which was Diakos or Diakou.
Wow.
They were deacons.
And your school is located where, in Manhattan?
No, we are in the South Bronx. We're
In
at
the South Bronx.
153rd and Grand Concourse. We are very fortunate. 5 years ago, we were able to sublet 2 floors in the Cardinal Hayes High School. And they're very good landlords. We're grateful for it.
That is excellent. Well, thank you. Would you keep us informed in the future and let us know how it's going and how the kids are doing?
You'll be my first call after we finish with the national championships. We definitely need listeners to help us.
Is there a
raise
website that can
funds.
help?
Yallow, Y-A-L-O-W, charter.org.
Thank you so much, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Thank you, John. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. Well, like every Sunday, Governor David Paterson. Well, Governor Paterson, what do you have in mind for this Greek Easter Sunday?
Well, John, I hope that you have come down from the tremendous performance that you put on at the event on Thursday morning, which I attended as well. But as we move on, it is Thursday was the 100th day that Mayor Mamdani is in office. And the first 100 days was really supposed to just get an idea of what the new executives' priorities are and how they do different things. But it also can be very negative. I understand that somebody came up to you a few days before and said, oh, his 100 days are up. So what was he supposed to do? Rebuild the entire transit system, knock down the Empire State Building and put another one up? I mean, it's the kind of ridiculousness that we in public office have to deal with. And if I could just make one comment about my first 100 days, I come in office on March 17th, 2008. It was sudden because the governor resigned. I didn't know half of his staff. I didn't know a whole lot of things that he had the time to prepare for. He was kind enough to talk to me on the phone during that time, but I was not in condition to have done anything except pass the budget, which I did 15 days after, but they went ahead and said that I'm a major disappointment. So what I do think, though, is Mamdani is interesting, and it kind of came up in the conversation that you had the other day, in that I hearken back to John Lindsay. He meets people very easily. He talks to people. He shows them that he's listening to them. Now, he's not always going to agree with them, and one day we might even want to throw him out, but the fact is he's a presence. He's not one of these mayors that kind of sits in the background and you never really see him. and it's a kind of a welcome change. It's very positive. He greets children well. That ability that he has, whatever you might call it, is something that can really take him a long way if he calms himself down and realizes that there's some of his issues that he cannot enforce. He cannot be telling the police commissioner how to run the police department because they have the strategic response group what's the best way to catch a criminal? To go to where they work. And so if you had, even in the tragic situation with the police officer who he threw the cooler and it wound up killing the perpetrator, he threw the cooler because the perpetrator was going 40 miles an hour into a crowd of people. These are the types of things that I think if he just kind of pulls back and recognizes that he's done well up to this point, and even the unions have been very gracious toward him, I think we might find that he's a little better than we thought he is. The only thing he does, John, that he needs to stop doing is something I was once accused of about 30 years ago. It's called flirting with the fringe. That means these DSA people come around and you listen to them and they get you to come to some event, and then someone writes about it in the newspaper. And I learned not to do that, and I hope he can too.
I pray for his success because his success and our city's success goes hand in hand.
Exactly. And I thought you accorded him a very nice compliment at the event the other day.
Oh, thank you so much. Anything else you want to tell New Yorkers?
Well, we are into the late budget process in Albany, and I think that this one could go for a while because I think that the governor, well, not the governor so much, but the legislature is entrenched on certain issues, and it's hard for her to get them to basically come to the table. I've been there, but she's tough, and she doesn't play around, when she's in charge. She might really take a while, but maybe by the first week of May, they'll get it done.
Some of the hospitals in Staten Island and some of the hospitals in Brooklyn are not getting paid because of the budget, and business has to go on.
Years ago, what we would do sometimes is we would take the critical issues, law enforcement, healthcare, and we would pay them even though we hadn't passed the budget. So in other words, we would now be more in the red than we were. And then, of course, once we passed the budget, we didn't have to withdraw the money because it was already there. I wonder if the legislators who are there now remember that period. It was like 30 years ago. But I think that might be a way. They tried it in the House and Senate in Washington, where they were thinking about going ahead. And actually, President Trump did pay some of the people that, work for the White House before their budget got passed. And I think that's something that it shows that you care. You can't just sit there and let people, where money used to come in every week, now it doesn't come in anymore. That's a dangerous place to be, and you won't be very popular with your constituency.
Governor David Paterson, thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your common sense. Thank you so much.
Take care.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is the borough president of the borough of Staten Island, Vito Fasella. Well, Vito, Sunday morning, what do you want to get off your chest?
I think it's probably appropriate. A lot of stories have been lately about the first 100 days of how things have been going in the city. And listen, we all want the city to be moving in the right direction. We all want people to do well. But I think things have to change going forward. I hope they do. For example, a couple of snowstorms. Granted, they were pretty heavy totals, but the response for Staten Island was very, very bad. In some situations, people were stranded for days, couldn't get out of their block. So that needs to get better. The good news is I met this week with the sanitation commissioner and his folks, as well as the Office of Emergency Management. And fortunately, they've already taken time to reassess or see what went wrong, the good, the bad, the ugly. So that the next weather event or snowstorm or whatever the case may be, they're better prepared, they have a better response, so that's a positive. Unfortunately, when the city announced 2K, the brand new 2K program, they totally left Staten Island out, which was not a good signal to the people of Staten Island, basically saying, almost not part of the city or a second-class citizen, so that needs to change. And finally, we have a big issue with a homeless shelter on the South Shore of Staten Island that nobody wants, that we don't want. And about a year ago, when Mayor Adams was the mayor, and the rumors started to float that there would be a homeless shelter in this area, I called and spoke personally with the mayor, and he looked into it and basically said, the veto, as long as I'm mayor, that's not going to happen. And that's the way it was. But recently, with the new administration, they've resurrected the concept and are moving forward with a homeless shelter, I think, for about 160 men in an area that really is unwarranted and just doesn't belong there. So there are certain things that are happening that are misfires, and we're doing everything we can to try to stop the homeless shelter, for example. That's our goal, that's our mission, that's our job. But things need to get better. I mean, there are a lot of indications out that sort of the city's moving in the wrong direction. And let's get focused back on public safety, economic security, encouraging businesses. I know you talk regularly about how big businesses and others just flee the city. Let's figure out a way to stay here and get new businesses here, to build the tax base, to expand the tax base. And the last thing anybody wants in Staten Island, is to raise property taxes, or frankly, any taxes for that matter. We spend a lot of money on a lot of unnecessary things. So let's get back to basics and common sense, as you always say.
I was on Fox Business the other day, Vito, and I said, well, maybe this is a different kind of situation, because they asked me the same question about the mayor's 100 days. And I said to them that, well, maybe there's a different kind of situation. Maybe we should do the first 150 days, because maybe you need to learn a little bit more.
I actually agree with you. I don't buy into the whole concept of the first 100 days. That's the equivalent of a photo, right? A snapshot. What matters most that you work hard, and it's the actions that you take, not just words, but the actions, and it's in for the long haul. You judge it not after 100 days, but after a year or 2 or 3 even. Then you can determine whether this situation is successful or not. So I'm only sort of bringing it up because everybody else is talking about it, but I'm with you. 150 days, 200 days. Just do the job every day. Do it right. Make things better for New York City. Make things better for Staten Island. Don't do us harm, because if you do, we'll fight back. But if you want to do good, you'll have a true champion in putting Staten Island first, frankly.
What else you want to tell people? I mean, give me one more item.
There's a lot of uncertainty in this world. I praise President Trump for trying to bring peace to the Middle East and basically right a ship that's been wrong for almost 50 years. And God bless our troops that are trying to stabilize and bring about peace. So our thoughts and prayers are with them on this day and every day, frankly. But let's get back to working together to get this country moving. There's so much partisanship, so many people who want to undo what the president is trying to do, and getting our economy back and strong and getting interest rates down and keeping inflation low, so that the good people of Staten Island, the hardworking, don't have to pay more in taxes. They're already sucked enough out of them. Let's get this country, keep it strong, keep it free, and bring businesses, as many as possible, back to New York City and get this place going in a strong and great way.
Vito Fasella, Borough President of Staten Island, thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning. And
thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Senator George Borrello. What the heck is going on with the budget? I got hospitals calling me in New York. One of them can't make payroll. One of them can't pay the rent. When can the hospitals get paid at least?
Well, right now, we just did our second budget extender this past week and left Albany, and we're told that the budget process is nowhere. In fact, during the debate, the ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, Senator Tom O'Mara, was told by Senator Gianaris, the floor leader in the Senate, that the negotiations are nowhere. And so we left Albany with nothing going on. And what that means, John, is we are passing these extenders just to make sure that state employees and state operations function. But for the other organizations, the thousands of not-for-profits like our hospitals, they are waiting to know what they're going to get. But what's even worse is that when they get it, it's not going to be enough to cover the cost of care. New York State's Medicaid reimbursement rates are well below what it costs to care for someone. And as you know, John, we've talked about on your show, we have 8.5 million New Yorkers that are on Medicaid, even though only about 5.5 million are actually income qualified to be on. So the fraud, waste, and abuse is bad enough, but the fact that these hospitals don't even know what kind of money they're going to be able to work with because of this late state budget is just absolutely tragic.
Now, I'll tell you, when you talk about that, I had Dr. Oz on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he was given a special assignment on, what is it, the Medicaid problem?
Yes.
The Medicaid in New York State is $100 billion. Is it $100 billion?
It's almost now approaching half of New York State's already bloated budget.
$100 billion versus Florida, where you have more old age people in Florida. It's only $33 billion, and they have less people.
Well, absolutely. You know, our Medicaid budget is the largest in the nation. It is filled with waste, fraud, and abuse. Yes, Dr. Oz specifically called out. We've had things I've talked about on your program before. The massive amount of fraudulent programs out there, people that are defrauding the taxpayers of New York State and the federal government. We have things like the non-emergency medical transportation, NEMT, which is a Medicaid expense that is defrauding hundreds of millions of dollars a year from taxpayers. And Governor Hochul has done nothing about it. The Medicaid Inspector General has done nothing about it. The Attorney General has done nothing about it, and is now approaching half of New York State's budget, and more than half of the money that people pay in their income taxes. And then of course property taxes, which are subsidizing Medicaid. From your county, your local county property taxes have to subsidize this wasteful program, the most expensive, bloated program in the nation. And here we are, John, without anyone willing to take responsibility. And why? Because a lot of those people that are profiting off of that waste, fraud, and abuse are supporters of the governor. They're kicking back money in forms of campaign donations to the governor for her turning the other way for the fraud and waste in our system.
What else do you want to get off your chest on a Sunday morning? And by the way, it's Greek Easter. So the good news is I bought all the chocolate bunnies for the kids at half price.
You always got a good deal, John. I know that you're a bargain hunter. But you know what? Have a blessed Easter. And I know, obviously, we have a lot of Greeks, and very much like the Italians, Easter is the holiest of all celebrations. And certainly wish all those Greek Orthodox and everyone else a beautiful Easter. And I hope that this is like everything else, this is a renewal of our season and a renewal of our commitment to try to make New York State better. And I will tell you what I've said before. Voting for a different Democrat isn't going to make a difference. We need real change here in New York State. We need balanced government. We need to restore balance in Albany. That's why I'm supporting Bruce Blakeman for governor. And people need to understand that even if you're a lifelong Democrat, we cannot have one-party rule anymore. It has been an unmitigated, expensive disaster here in New York State. It's time to restore balance. It's time to elect more Republicans, even if you're not a Republican, and it's time to elect a Republican governor so we can get New York State back on track.
Senator Borrello, take care of New York State, because we want New York State, New York City to survive. We want businesses to survive.
Absolutely. Amen to that.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Jesse Arn, and he's the Executive Director of External Affairs and Chief of Staff at the Manhattan Institute. And Jesse, a lot of things going on with our budgets in New York City, New York State. Give us your interpretation what's going on.
Well, the latest, John, is that the bond market is sending New York City a pretty clear warning signal. So think of this municipal bond market as essentially Wall Street's version of a credit score for the city. When investors feel confident that a city is being run responsibly, they're willing to accept lower returns to lend it money. But when they get nervous, like they are right now with a socialist Mamdani at the helm, they're starting to demand higher returns to compensate for the risk. And that's what's happening now. Since last February, the yields on New York City's main two forms of debt have spiked between something like 16 and 17%. That's basically the market's way of telling us we're not sure this city is really being run by adults anymore. And the scary part is that every time those borrowing costs go up, the city has to spend even more just to service its existing debt, which means less money for basic services and even higher taxes on the people like you who are still crazy enough to stay because you love the Big Apple so much.
Well, we really do love the Big Apple, and we want to be able to save it. And what I said to the mayor is you're on either the brink of success or the brink of disasters. But he's a smart guy, and I'm hoping he's on the brink of success because we want to save our city.
What you mentioned earlier and what is happening now is that Moody's could downgrade New York City. That would be a very big deal. So who is Moody's? They are one of the most powerful financial rating agencies in the world. They essentially grade how trustworthy a borrower is, whether that's a corporation or a city government. And right now they're warning explicitly that they may downgrade New York City's credit rating, citing what they call sizable and persistent budget gaps. Okay, that's basically fancy language for saying that the city is spending way more than it's taking in and there's no credible plan to fix it. And what makes this especially alarming is that even New York City's own Mark Levine, the comptroller, is saying that this is a really sobering wake-up call, okay? This is the first time the city has received this kind of warning since COVID. The difference is COVID was an act of God. This is an entirely self-inflicted wound, and it's the direct result of putting a socialist at the helm who has not a lot of experience in charge of running things like the largest city in America.
Anything else you want to tell the American people or the New Yorkers?
I just want to well, I think the parting thought that I'll leave them with is that this is the concept that every New Yorker really needs to understand, because this is where socialism goes wrong at the city level, classically. New York is already carrying up to roughly $100 billion in debt, okay? And just paying the interest on that debt eats up about 10 cents of every dollar in the city's budget, and that number is growing. So you layer on top of that the Mamdani plan to raise taxes and unleash spending to pay for it for all of his free promises. What's going to happen? The high earners and businesses who actually fund this city through their taxes with what they've always done are going to have the government squeezing too hard, and then they're going to leave. And when they leave, the tax base shrinks, the budget gaps get bigger, the credit rating falls further, borrowing costs get even higher, and the city has to raise taxes again, which pushes even more people out. That is the kind of classic socialist doom loop, and it has bankrupted many cities and countries throughout history. The bond market is now seeing this coming, and the only question is whether New Yorkers wake up before that bill comes due.
Well, Jesse Arm, Manhattan Institute, thank you so much for getting it off your chest, and I think everybody believes you're more right than wrong.
Good to be with you, John. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you. And with us today is District Attorney Ray Tierney. And, thank you for everything you do for Suffolk County.
Thank you, John, and thank you for having me. So we're continue to progress and work to make Suffolk County the safest big county in America. We have great law enforcement partners, our Sheriff, Errol Toulon, our Police Commissioner, Kevin Catalina, and our County Executive, Ed Romaine, really are very committed to supporting not only the mission of the DA's office, but also public safety in general.
Tell us the evolution of the problems and the safety.
Well, I think for a while, there was a pronounced issue with gangs on Long Island. I think in the early 2000s, MS-13 really rose up, and I think they caught law enforcement by surprise at the time. And homicides really ballooned in Suffolk and Nassau County because they were incredibly deadly and violent transnational gang. I think through the work of a bunch of really committed people, especially our federal partners. I was in the 2008. I was through 2019. I was a federal prosecutor, prosecuted and investigated about 67 MS-13 homicides that occurred in Nassau and Suffolk County, and working with the FBI and a bunch of other people, we were really able to address that situation, and that situation has been curtailed. The other street gangs, we've seen an evolution in the way they do things. We see that they've gone away from the traditional blood and Crip type of gangs and going now, not only do they have those gang affiliations, but they have local neighborhood gang affiliations in which they try to assert geographic domination over certain areas, and they fight and have drive-by shootings back and forth. So although gang violence in Suffolk County is greatly reduced, that's really the current source of whatever violence we have. But overall, since I've been in office, I think our shooting numbers are down about 35-40%. And again, with the help of our really great partners, we're doing a good job.
Now, you've also solved some major cases out there in Long Island, not just the latest one last week, but some other big ones.
When we came into office, everyone, when I ran for office, everyone talked to me, oh, what are we going to do about Gilgo? You're going to be able to solve Gilgo. So we formed a task force, and fortunately we were able to solve or hold defendant Rex Heuermann responsible for 8 murders in connection with that Gilgo Beach investigation. But in the course of investigating these things, we saw that there were a lot of other unsolved homicides in Suffolk County. So we started a cold case unit. We're using some of the same techniques we used in Gilgo. There's been great advancements in electronic forensics, DNA forensics, and so these techniques we're utilizing and reapplying to old cases, and we're having success.
I remember back when President Trump, a long time ago, gave Suffolk County the ammunition to get rid of the gangs. Are they still gone, or they're trying to accumulate again?
I think when President Trump came, I was there, and I was there when he came in, and he was specifically there to address the gang problem and the MS-13 problem. The federal government dedicated a lot of resources, as did local law enforcement, and it's gotten much better from back at those times. But these gangs are resourceful, they're irrepressible, and you have to continue to pay attention to them and be vigilant, because they're constantly trying to reassert their dominance.
There's some crazy things going on in our country, in our cities. How do we solve these problems?
The one thing we have to do is we have to be commonsensical about it. We have to be, and we have to be collaborative. So, there's a proposal in Albany right now where they want to prevent New York law enforcement from cooperating with ICE or HSI. Completely against that. I think that as a law enforcement official in Suffolk County, I have an obligation to at least collaborate and communicate with all of our federal partners, including HSI, including ICE, and it shouldn't be the legislature who tells me who I can and can't work with.
What else you want to tell the American people?
We in Suffolk County, we're working really hard. Our violent crime numbers are down. We've done a lot of great initiatives with regard to quality of life crime, and there's this persistent sentiment around the country that you could steal people's property and that crimes are not being enforced. I can tell you that on Long Island and in Suffolk County, that's just not the case. We are vigilantly trying to keep our community safe, to be fair about it, and also protect our great quality of life in Suffolk County, because the one thing that we have to keep in mind is the reason why people come out to Suffolk County is because it's safe, it's a great quality of life, and there's great opportunity for people's children.
District Attorney Ray Tierney, Suffolk County, I want to thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. Well, this is Steve Cates, like every Sunday. Steve, I look towards you. I mean, we've had so many successful things going on lately. What is the big thing going on in your mind?
Well, John, it's a quick summary of the Artemis 2 mission so far to date. Now, they've traveled incredible, once they complete the loop, to about 750,000 miles in a 10-day period, which is incredible. The big thing about that mission is that they've gone as far away from Earth as humans have ever gone. That's 252,760,000 miles, which is incredible. But, John, here's a bit of trivia from space. These astronauts, even Apollo 8, when they circled the moon, were not the first creatures to ever go out to space. That title goes to the Russians, who launched a space probe called Zond 5, which was Mission 5. And on board, John, really quickly, they had a few animals, including 2 tortoises. And they didn't feed the tortoises. They wanted to see how they would handle environments in space. And they actually came back, and they were very hungry, and they survived. So back before Apollo 8, small creatures like tortoises made the journey. That, to me, is most incredible. A little bit of space trivia.
Let me ask you a question. It's not the only problem. You know, things that NASA doesn't tell us sometimes is the amount of radiation you're going to get on an 8-month trip to Mars. Don't forget, the moon is, like the southern people would say, a hoot and a holler away. It's not, it's only 250,000 miles. But Mars is, 9 months, 8 months, 7 months. Radiation. Are we closer to solving that problem?
Probably not, John. I mean, that's always, all we want is honesty here. And here's the reason I say that. It's because they're still doing the analysis from Artemis and other missions that were made that went even deeper into the Van Allen belt. So you're absolutely right. But, John, going back to some of the mysteries of the moon, here's the 5 that are most important. What's the origin of the moon? Some say that an object like the planet Mars sliced into the Earth, and what came out was the moon. It formed. How much water is on the moon? There's water ice. We don't know how much. The next one, what is the center of the moon like? Why did the moon lose its magnetic field? And why is the far side that the astronauts on Artemis have seen so different than the front? So you're right. Only 250,000 miles away, these mysteries are still unfolding, John. It's just incredible.
It is incredible, but it shows you how little we know versus how much we know.
You're absolutely right. And here's another one. How about closer to home? When did the Earth's magnetic field flip? Well, it's done it many times, but the big one, John, according to geologists and space scientists, 43 million years ago, the entire magnetic field of the Earth flipped, and it lasted 80,000 years. So closer to home, every 300,000 years it flips, and over the last 170 million years, the magnetic field flipped, John, 500 times. And the reversal may not be good. We don't have anyone, coming soon, thank goodness, at least as far as we know.
How far away will be the next one? I mean, don't forget, they changed the runway numbers a little while back because there's a little bit of variation.
You're right, John, but nothing for people to worry about. The big magnetic field flip, like I mentioned before, what happens is cosmic radiation gets in and out when the thing waxes or wanes. So over the period of time, some are saying 2.4 million years ago, a blast of radiation actually altered the DNA of whatever animals were there. This is a great mystery. And speaking of mysteries, John, we always conclude with the mystery of the week. And here's an interesting one. The question goes like this. What would happen to the Earth if it stopped spinning for 5 minutes? Well, the sad answer is this. Everything not locked down would continue moving at a speed of 1,000 miles an hour eastward, would cause massive tsunamis, oceans would move toward the poles, and that would be an extinction event. And, John, just to brighten everybody's Sunday...
Let me ask that, because everybody says that we had the problem with Noah's Ark, and there are, in the Mediterranean, in Japan, in the Aegean Sea, there is cities underneath the water.
Yes, it's amazing.
So when did that happen? Did it happen 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago?
We really don't know, John. They do this geologic dating by checking for what they call isotopes in rocks, and they check. But what's so fascinating about it, we always talk about it, and we both obviously agree 1,000,000%. Mother Earth has always been, through crises, but always seemingly recovered. So with the pyramids in Egypt, we're finding out that there's other areas underneath there that are still unexplored. But under the oceans, John, we have less knowledge of the undersea of the ocean or the underworld, down there, than we do about outer space. So there's so much to learn right below our feet, not just above what's our heads, looking out into the sky. Total amazing. As we enlighten everyone here on the great mysteries of what's happening around Mother Earth and out to space.
Well, Steve Cates, thank you for your wisdom, and we'll talk to you again real soon to find out more things of what's going on. And I enjoy your show for Saturday morning and Sunday morning, and 2 hours of more mysteries, and God bless you and God bless America.
Well, John, thank you for the opportunity as we speak about everything above our heads and also stories of American exceptionalism. Thank you for having me, and good Sunday morning to everyone.
The Cats Roundtable.
What the heck is going on with the markets? Let's talk to John Terrett.
John, thank you. Good morning. Let's look back to last week. Everything was dominated by the ceasefire, of course. If you remember Wednesday morning, the Dow was up by about 1,300 points. Then it fell because investors were worried the ceasefire couldn't hold. Then it rallied again because they decided, well, maybe actually, okay, it can. Oil, of course, was the focus, dipping on Friday as far as $95 a barrel again, but, of course, pushing $100 for most of the week, even after the ceasefire had been announced. And then on Friday, we had CPI, consumer price inflation, the biggest jump in nearly 4 years, up 0.9% in the month of March to 3.3% at an annual clip. And if you strip out food and energy, the core was up 0.2% to 2.6% at an annual rate. So that's not as bad as the headline. But, of course, the headline is something that everybody hones in on. I have to say it was all in line with expectations. But the White House pushed back, saying that eggs and beef and prescription drugs were all down or stable. And they also pointed out that President Trump has always said that the price of oil and gas would fall once the Iran war actually ends. The big business story of the week was Bill Ackman of Pershing Square Capital. It's a sort of holding company, really. For the last 5 years, he's been trying to get his hands on Universal Music Group. And this week, he offered $64 billion to buy out the whole thing. Now, if he gets it, it's not clear that he will yet, but if he does, he'll move it from Amsterdam, where it presently trades, to New York City. And the reason for that is if you want to bring money into companies, then you trade in New York or Hong Kong. These are the two most liquid places in the world. Universal Music is a giant music company, home to people like Lady Gaga, Bob Dylan, and my personal favorite, Barry Manilow. He wrote to the board and said, look, you've got an underutilized balance sheet here, and one of the things he has his eye on is the company's $3.3 billion investment in Spotify. He wants to monetize that much more and other parts of the business. So we'll see whether the deal actually goes through. I do like to give you a crypto story every week, and the big one this week, Morgan Stanley's Bitcoin ETF turning in $34 million worth of business on its first day last Thursday and pushing that ETF into the top 10 in the United States. And so too the week ahead, well, it's really first quarter earnings season proper now. Beginning tomorrow morning, Monday, Goldman Sachs will report, the other big banks on Tuesday and Wednesday, and Netflix, the first of the big tech companies, on Thursday. John.
Thank you so much, John Terrett, and we'll catch up with you again real soon.
Thank you, John. See you next Sunday.
It's Easter Sunday for the Greek Orthodox of the world. And with us today from the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese is Father Evangelos. And Father, happy Easter. Christ has risen.
Truly he has risen.
Thank you. And there's so many Americans out there, and we could have 1 million people listening right now that don't understand why the Catholic Easter and the Greek Orthodox Easter are two different dates. And maybe you can give us a blessing for this Sunday morning, and tell us the difference between Passover for the Jewish people and Catholic Easter and Greek Orthodox Easter.
Absolutely. John, thank you so much for having us on the show this morning. And before I begin, I want to convey to you and to all of your listeners the blessings of our Archbishop, His Eminence Archbishop Elpidoforos of America, who this morning is celebrating the Easter services in Brookville out on Long Island with a whole group of auxiliary bishops and the faithful on Long Island. And I think one of the things, John, that, we speak about when we look at Easter and Passover and the difference between Roman Catholic or Protestant Easter and Orthodox Easter is that really the base and the root of the celebration is the same, but it's a matter of how we calculate the days. About 1,000 years ago, there was a difference between how the Orthodox Church in the East and the Church in the West started calculating the days. And one of the things that the late Pope Francis and the ecumenical patriarch Bartholomew had discussed and were looking forward was to really find a way that we could join together and celebrate Easter on the same day, much like we all celebrate Christmas on the same day. So while there's a difference in the dates that we celebrate, the root of the celebration, the rising of Jesus Christ, the victory of life over death, all of those things remain, and that's what Orthodox Christians all across the world and here in America are celebrating on this glorious day.
Understood. And anything else you want to tell the American people on a... Are we all going to eat lamb today?
Oh, we're definitely going to eat lamb today. And I think that one of the best things about being in New York is that, and I'm sure you know this, John, is if you take a ride through Astoria today, the entire town there is going to smell like roast lamb. But one of the great things that I do want to share with you and with your listeners is that Orthodox Christianity is really experiencing a spiritual awakening in this country. I think that more and more people are starting to look and have been looking over the past 5 or 6 years, have really been looking to identify and find a spiritual connection to authenticity. And that's what the Orthodox Church offers, is this authentic Christian experience. And so what we've seen in Orthodox churches across America is a great revival. You see churches in California, churches in the South, churches in the Northeast that are not just converting 5 or 6 people, but are converting hundreds of people at a time and welcoming them into the Orthodox faith. So you have then in our parishes, not only the people like you and I who have grown up in this Orthodox faith, but hundreds of people, thousands of people, and across the country, hundreds of thousands of people who are coming into the Orthodox faith as they search for that authentic representation of Christianity. So it's really a beautiful thing, and Orthodox Christianity is a glorious thing to learn about and to experience, and to have all of those emotions and the senses and the smoke and the incense and the iconography, things that may be foreign to us as an American people. But as we start to look into the depths of our souls and start to yearn for a connection to God, an authentic connection to God across the country, and I dare say even across the world, people are coming to Orthodoxy and realizing that there is a truth in it that is glorious, and that's something we should celebrate today.
Father Evangelos, thank you so much. Christ is risen, and I'm going to eat a lot of lamb later on, and it's a great annual tradition, and it was great to be at the Archdiocese Cathedral last night and at midnight mass, and we enjoy it every year. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. You're the best. Have a great Easter.
Thank you for being with us for the Cats Roundtable Local Edition, the #1 show on Sunday mornings in New York. Keep listening to us for the Cats Roundtable National Edition between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. So we'll be back to you in a few minutes after the news.